grown skilled in Form 5. Your prowess as a warrior continues to grow. And as always, we must temper this prowess with knowledge. It is time to continue your lessons into the history of this galaxy, of the Jedi, and the Sith. When last we spoke of such things, we covered the Great Galactic War and the mighty Lord Vitiate. We spoke of the devastation this conflict wrought across the galaxy. Now, we shall continue the story. We shall speak of the era of the Jedi Lords. Unlocking File. History of the Force. Processing. The years after the Great Galactic War and the Galactic War were not kind to the galaxy. The Republic found itself a shadow of what it once was, and the decades of conflict against the Sith and Eternal Empires had left trillions dead. Hundreds of worlds were completely devastated. The Republic military was shattered, ruined, a shell of what it used to be. Remember this, apprentice. When you show weakness, it is inevitable for challenge to come. The Republic's weakness after the Great Galactic War was apparent to all, and it was not long before others rose to challenge their power. Corporations began to worm their way into the Senate more than ever before, and eventually the furnace of outright rebellion began to fire. Alsakan was another core world and founder of the Republic. Like Coruscant, it sat across major trade routes, the Paraliminian Way, and like the Galactic Capital, it was a planet-wide city, an ecumenopolis. In fact, Alsakan and Coruscant were both considered as potential capitals for the Republic, as we have discussed before. This rivalry boiled over many times into open conflict, and this would happen again in the wake of the Great Galactic War. Alsakan would ally with other worlds along the Paraliminian Way, such as Korlog, to form a political alliance known as the Axis. The Republic would respond by attempting to build new ships to suppress any attempts by the Axis to gain independence. Tensions grew, and skirmishes became common along the Paraliminian. But the Republic, as I have said, had grown weak. They had trouble producing ships, and those that they produced were nothing new. The galactic government was already beginning to suffer from a breakdown of galactic trade and manufacturing. Alsakan responded to the Republic build-up with a build-up of their own, and the galaxy entered into an arms race. Local manufacturing, however, was doing just fine. The Corellians are, even to this day, renowned engineers and shipwrights, and their local industry was able to maintain itself as the galaxy began its slow slip into chaos. They designed new warships with advances in both weapons and shielding technology. Their ships gave them a distinct edge, and they were able to assert their own interests as Alsakan and Coruscant continued to squabble. In 3000 BBY, outright conflict would break out, and the Corellians' new technology would sweep both Alsakan and Coruscanti navies to the side. Peace would finally come when Prince Admiral Jonash Isolo enforced a treaty in the Senate, proclaiming Coruscant forever as galactic capital and ending Alsakan conflicts for good. Though there would be a period of peace and stability tactics, political corruption, and self-interest on the part of the ruling elite. The Republic would begin a slow and steady decline. It would not happen all at once, but a little at a time, bit by bit. The government stopped being able to enforce itself in the far outer rim, and over the following centuries this lack of control would slowly begin to creep inwards. The core began to look to itself and the inner colonies. The Jedi, during all of this, sat as weak and ineffectual as the Republic. They had been driven once again to the brink of extinction and were very slow to recover. Their code became stricter than ever, limiting their ability to recover their numbers, and those Jedi who did remain would become primarily concerned with political affairs. Their decline would match the Republic's. It would be slow, steady, almost unnoticed. But in 2000 BBY, the cracks would finally rise to the surface, and the shell of prosperity the galaxy had barely managed to shield itself behind would shatter. A powerful Jedi Master, known as Thanius, decided to leave the Order behind over philosophical differences. On the surface, this was because Thanius found his will to be superior to all else, and this did not fit with the Jedi's code. The split was supposed to be amicable, and he would be the first of what would become known as the Lost 20, a group of Jedi Masters who would leave the Order behind over the following centuries over philosophical differences. But underneath this was a falsehood. Thanius had been seduced by the dark side of the Force, and he wished to study its deeper mysteries. He would head into the Outer Rim, stealing a Sith Holocron from the Jedi. There, he would study its teachings, much as you have studied mine, apprentice, and he would then gather together the shattered remnants of the Sith to form a new Sith Empire. He would declare himself Dark Lord of the Sith under the name of Darth Ruin. Over 50 Jedi Knights would follow him into the Outer Rim, and this event would become known as the Fourth Great Schism. The new Sith Empire would quickly take system after system in the northeast corner of the galaxy, dominating many worlds, including Yavin 4, Ziost, even Korriban, ancient homeworld of the Sith. However, this new Sith Empire would be plagued by infighting. Darth Ruin would eventually be betrayed and killed by his followers, and Dark Lord after Dark Lord would rise to take his place. Though the Sith would manage to drive the Republic back, their ultimate success was hampered by this cycle of betrayal. The onslaught from Darth Ruin would expose the fragile peace the Republic had achieved as a farce. Their military would suffer a string of defeats, and the economy would plummet. The disruption in galactic trade would cause corporations to fail on extreme scales. Resources would become scarce, and the Republic government would begin to unravel entirely everywhere but inside the core. The members of the Jedi Council were completely ineffectual in their response to these crises. They bickered over how to respond to Darth Ruin and the following Dark Lords, more concerned over the political ramifications of their actions than in actually protecting the Republic they had sworn to serve. Many individual knights would respond to this by making for the outer and mid-rims on their own. They would band together, or sometimes work alone, and they would seize political control of planets, systems, even entire sectors. They would set up baronies and duchies, and would become known as the Jedi Lords. They fought to protect the people of the galaxy when the Republic failed to do so, but in order to achieve this goal, they demanded fealty and military service. They ruled as kings and queens, and raised armies of their own, and these Jedi kingdoms would form a very loose confederation under an organization known as the Jedi Grand Council, made up of the most powerful among their number. However, in the end, these Jedi were still beholden to Coruscant, sometimes begrudgingly, and to the Jedi High Council. Indeed, even in the galactic capital, the Jedi began to move deeper into politics. Many Jedi served openly in the government, and many more would even become Supreme Chancellor. It was a regression to the days of Grand Master Octavius, following the collapse of the Pius Dei. In 1466 BBY, the Sith would score a key victory at the Battle of Misra. The Republic would lose over 500,000 men in a single day, and hundreds of Jedi would fall to the dark side over the course of the battle. It was a stunning defeat for the Republic, and in response the Senate voted full emergency powers to the Supreme Chancellor. Any semblance of galactic organization outside the core completely disappeared. Trade, manufacturing, they became things of the past beyond the system level. Even the HoloNet would fail, and for the first time in millennia, messages had to be delivered to Coruscant by courier. This period of time is known as the Republic Dark Age, and it would last for almost half a millennium until the Battle of Busan. But we will speak of that soon, apprentice. The only thing that saved the Republic was the divisiveness of the Sith. The Dark Lords of the time grew progressively weaker and weaker. While still potent dark side users, they had no control over the scheming and backstabbing which is inherent to the Sith. Know this, apprentice. If you are to reign well, these things must always be fully within your control. Else, you shall suffer the same fate as the new Sith Empire. This empire would shatter and become headed by several different warlords who were almost always at odds. They warred with one another as much as they did the Republic, and because of this disunity, the Jedi Lords were able to hold back the tide. The galaxy continued to regress. Blasters became rare and expensive, and some starships of the day were even constructed from the wooden Rorshirs of Kashyyyk. It was only the Jedi Lords who held together the galactic community. And the High Council's response to this was, of course, jealousy. They saw the growing power of the Jedi Lords as a potential threat, both to the Republic and their own power. And so, they began to look for a means to combat the Sith on their own. Not because of any sense of duty, but rather out of political necessity. The Jedi of Coruscant would find a champion in the prodigy of Skire Khan, a young human male who was extremely skilled in battle meditation. He would become a valuable tool of the Council and the Republic, but he would openly criticize both as the cause for the rising anarchy within the galaxy. And so, the the Jedi would attempt to buy his loyalty. They would award Khan the rank of Master. But Khan was a shrewd politician in his own right, and he recognized this title for what it was, a means for the Council to maintain control of him. In response, he left the Order for the Outer Rim, convincing many of his fellow knights to follow him. There, he would unify the fighting factions of Sith Warlords by nullifying the importance of the Dark Lord. He told them that all claims to the title were valid, that all of them were Dark Lords, equal within the dark side, and ruled only by the strongest of their number out of necessity. I cannot express to you enough, my apprentice, just how wrong this is. The title of Dark Lord is more than a title. It carries with it the weight of strongest among the Sith, and those who are strongest among our Order are true masters of the dark side. One cannot earn such a title simply by claiming it. As you have learned, the claim is only the beginning of a very long and difficult road. One which will winnow you until you are either destroyed or you become strong. To grant such a title to everyone, it dilutes its meaning, turns it from a weighty thing within the Force to simply any other name. As a final heresy, Khan even banished the honorific of Darth. We have studied Darth Treya and her wisdom, apprentice. As she would say, to hold to an ideal is to be willing to betray it. We have studied Lord Vitiate, who grew beyond the teachings of the Sith. You must be prepared, my apprentice, to one day go beyond our code. But when you do, you must maintain the ethos imparted by it. The Sith Code is meant to instruct fundamental truths. The words are merely words, but they reveal a path that can strengthen us. Khan's heresy stems not in the fact that he changed things, but in how. His approach was not one conducive to the dark side. Equality? There is no equality in the Force, only strength, and those of us strong enough to shape destiny will be the ones to shape it. If we hold equality dear, then we can make things equal when we obtain the strength to shift the tides of fate. But this strength must belong to you, and to you alone. It cannot be equally shared. And yet, Khan's ploy worked. So weak and pathetic-minded were the Sith of the era that they greedily took his offer. They became the Brotherhood of Darkness, and in 1010 BBY, they began to strike against the Republic once more as a unified force. Over the next decade, Khan would drive the Republic back, scoring victories across the galaxy and even positioning himself to take Coruscant. But his plans would ultimately fall short. The Jedi Lord Hoth, a famed battlefield commander and powerful Jedi Master, would call together Jedi and their forces from across the galaxy. They would become known as the Army of Light, and they would take the fight to the Brotherhood of Darkness. The Army of Light would have immediate success, driving the Brotherhood from system to system, slowly wearing them down. Eventually, the two sides would come to a final clash on the planet of Busan. This conflict would be known as the single bloodiest in all of the history of either the Jedi or the Sith. Thousands were killed on both sides, devastating both orders. Into this conflict stepped the figure known as Darth Bane. We will speak of him in detail during your next lesson, apprentice, for he is one of 3 possible Sithari, and shaped the Sith for millennia after his death. But, for now, suffice it to say that he was a rival to Lord Khan. Bane, in fact, took up his Darth title in direct defiance of Khan. Bane was a true Sith, and he followed the true Sith way. Khan's inability to remove Bane caused cracks to form in the Brotherhood's unity. And as Bane grew stronger, the backfighting and infighting of the past, that had been barely held in check by Khan's machinations, began to return. And the Battle of Busan began to go badly. Casualties began to grow on both sides. They became so high that even the Jedi were forced to use child soldiers. Khan needed to bring an end to the conflict quickly, else he risked losing his tenuous grip on power. And so Darth Bane offered Khan access to an ancient Sith ritual, one which would destroy the Jedi and bring the Sith victory. He had learned this ritual from the Holocron of Darth Revan. It was called the Thought Bomb, and it was a corruption of the draining ritual that Lord Vitiate had first used on Nathama millennia ago. Instead of allowing Khan to absorb the Force essence of the world, it tore the souls from those present, trapping them forever. All of the Jedi and Sith on the planet, including Lord Khan and Lord Hoth, were slain and their souls trapped in a valley which would become known as the Valley of the Jedi. This event would bring an end to the new Sith Wars and usher in the period afterward known as the Busan Reformation. For now, know that Darth Bane survived the Thought Bomb. In fact, he had given it to Khan as a trap, intending to wipe out all of his rivals in one fell swoop. He would then reform the Sith into the image that he saw best for them. The Brotherhood of Darkness was completely destroyed, and the Jedi Lords too were devastated. They would never recover from the defeat. Peace would fall again. But it would fall in a galaxy that had been continually ravaged by war for the better part of 3,000 years. It would force the people and governments of the galaxy to change, and the Jedi and Sith to change with them. But that is a lesson for another time, my apprentice. For now, continue your training in Form 5 and meditate on this history. This was a downswing in galactic history. As such times tend to do, it applied incredible stress to the galaxy, and in this crucible, weakness was stripped away. The Sith were hamstrung by their infighting until one could rise who could sweep away the old order. And the Jedi too were forced to change, to leave behind their passive ways if they hoped to survive the period. It shows you, apprentice, how sometimes one's ideals can become a handicap, and that only by growing beyond them can you hope to progress. This is not to say you leave behind all that makes you you, or that you should neglect principles that still work in practice. But you must never allow these principles to ultimately define you. You must choose growth, or else Force growth never comes, and stagnation occurs. This is a lesson that we will explore further next time when we speak of Darth Bane. But for now, set course for the Dark Lord's home planet of Apatros. Remember, the Jedi and Imperial Knights are almost certainly on your tail. You have the means to deal with them should they find you, but you must take all precautions now as you travel the galaxy. Make it alive to the surface of Apatros, and I will unlock your next lesson. Until then, apprentice, may the Force break your chains.